Say with the National Military Family Association and National University. Thanks for joining us today. So we know that kids, it's kind of hard to be a kid sometime, and sometimes it's hard to be a teenager. And if you're a military kid or a military teenager, it can be that much harder. So we're going to talk today about some of the unique challenges that those kids face, as well as how are we preparing them before this becomes overwhelming for them. So we'd like to welcome National Military Family Association again to San Diego, where they got to see some kids surfing yesterday. We're super excited about that, a very San Diego event. And we'd love to just say welcome. We're so happy to partner with you, and you've been a great partner for us through the years. We have a long-standing commitment to military affiliated students and military communities here at National University. In fact, about 30% of our students are military affiliated, not only here in the San Diego area, but all over the country. And so Harmony exists to give every child the relationship skills that they need to allow them to thrive in school and beyond. Military children often experience frequent moves, they change friendships, deployments, they experience uncertainty. I'm a military spouse for 23 years. I moved 17 times. My daughter is 29 now, and she still says, I'm a military kid, Mom. Military kids serve. And so we don't want to wait until students or children are struggling socially, emotionally, or academically before we offer them support. The adults surrounding the children in the community are really important. And we're going to hear about that today. Our teachers, our coaches, our counselors. We're going to talk a little bit about how those folks can contribute to the well-being of our military children. So today's conversation is about understanding the challenges that our military kids face today and how we can act early to support them. And so I am very, very honored to introduce one of the champions of military kids, military communities, quality of life, and really kids everywhere, especially in San Diego, Representative Sarah Jacobs.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you. Good morning. I'm so excited that NMFA chose San Diego to launch this report because, well, I'm a little biased, but I think we're the best. And I am so proud to represent San Diego, the largest military community in the country. And I love the National Military Family Association. You guys do so much work to support our military families. And what I'm super excited about this report is that it actually asks teens themselves how they're doing instead of us just talking about them. It's actually talking to them and listening to what they need. So thank you for doing that. And Hunter, I'm excited to hear what you say. Thanks for being here. Look, as you all know, it's not just the person who wears the uniform who serves, right? It's the whole family. It's the spouse. It's the kids who share the duty, the stress, and the sacrifices of life in the military. And we know that military kids and teens in particular face unique challenges, right? You've already heard. They change schools frequently. They've mastered the art of saying goodbye and making new friends, saying goodbye to their home, to their routine, right? It's something that they become very used to because they do it so often. They've missed birthdays and holidays and milestones when their parent is deployed. And sometimes, often, they have to grow up too soon when they take on those added responsibilities because one of their parents is away. I know that these sacrifices are often overlooked. They're often seen as secondary, right? We talk about military readiness, and then we talk about families as if they're two separate things. But the fact of the matter is that our military families are our military readiness. Because if a service member is worried about what's happening at home, if they can't find childcare for their family, if they can't make sure that their family is in housing that is safe and secure and high quality, they're not focused on the job we need them to do for our national security. So these are not two distinct things. Addressing the needs of our military families is how we address military readiness, is how we make sure we're recruiting and retaining the best of the best into our military. And that's why I'm so proud that even with all of the chaos happening in Washington, D.C. right now, that on the House Armed Services Committee, we've been able to do some real things on military quality of life. We've been able to establish and expand the basic needs allowance. We've boosted military pay. We've passed the Military Readiness Housing Council Act into law. We've expanded access to childcare. We're fighting for IVF and fertility coverage and so much more. Because so many of us know on the House Armed Services Committee, in a bipartisan way, that whether it's safe and quality housing, whether it's affordable childcare, whether it's mental health support, fertility services, these aren't extras. They're the support that military families need and deserve. And another key part of supporting our military families is making sure that we only deploy their loved ones when it comes to a last resort, when we've actually exhausted all of our diplomatic and non-military options. And so right now, because I represent San Diego and our so many military families here, because I talk to military families who have loved ones deployed off the coast of Iran, because we have about 45,000 military families who right now are on 48-hour deployment notice, waiting to hear if they're going to have to leave in a moment's notice, I've been doing everything I can to end the war in Iran and bring our service members home, because they're my constituents. They're some of your family members, and they deserve to be here. They willingly make the sacrifice, but it's our job to make sure that that sacrifice is worth it. So I want to thank you all again for your work, especially when we're in the middle of another war. It's easy for us just to focus on the economic costs that we're paying and forget about the actual sacrifices of our military families and our service members and their kids. So I'm grateful to everyone who shared their experiences with this survey and with me, because the wins, the challenges, the everyday realities of life in military families, that's what helps me do my job better and make sure that we are making policies that are actually going to improve military quality of life and not just sound good and make us feel good in Washington, D.C. So thank you again for inviting me this morning. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to hear all of the insights. And now I will pass it over to NMFA CEO, Bessa Pinchoti.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do for military families in Washington and here at home in San Diego. And thank everyone who has tuned into the live stream. There's a lot of things you could be doing right now, but listening to military teens and military family voices is critical to our national security and to our military families, which if you're here, you obviously care about military families. So again, I thank you for that. What we do at the National Military Family Association is we work with military families to solve the unique challenges of military life. So the first thing you have to do if you want to work with military families is listen, right? And there's a lot of different members of the military family. There's the service member, and those are the ones that you can just see walking down the street and you know there's someone in the military. But then there's the other members of the military family who look just like all of us, and you would have no idea that Hunter, sitting over here, is a military kid. So that's why it's important that we do that in a lot of different ways. One of them is through surveys. So our Military Teen Experience Survey, which I know you're all waiting to hear the results of. Another way, though, is through our programming. So we have Operation Purple camps all around the country, but one of them, our favorite, is here in San Diego. It's Camp Surf, and military kids get to come and spend time just being kids for a week, get away from the stresses of military life. And that is so important. It's respite for the kids. It's respite for the parents. And I want to tell you more about Operation Purple Camp, but there's someone whose voice is just like a little bit better than mine at this. So I'm going to let him tell you.
There are no medals for being the new kid. No glory in a hard goodbye. No salutes for starting over. And over. And over. But there are other things. There's the strength to let go. The resilience to find a new way forward. And the courage to never look back. Operation Purple Camp. Join the mission at operationpurple.org.
Thanks, Dwayne. I mean, you know. Anyway, you got a little glimpse of what Operation Purple Camp is all about. And we do a lot of different things at NMFA, and I'm going to encourage you all to go to militaryfamily.org and learn about some of those, whether it's scholarships for military spouses, our advocacy on the Hill. There's lots to learn, but I want to get to what we're all here for, and that is our Military Teen Experience Survey. And to present that data, I want to introduce my colleague, Raleigh Detweiler. She has put her whole heart and soul into this and cares deeply as a human, as an NMFAer, as a military family member. And so, Raleigh, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hi, guys. I'm going to hold my water with me. I'm sorry, I'm asthmatic, and welcome to Traveling with Asthma. So forgive me as I suck down water throughout this. I'm so excited to be here. And if we can click over to the next slide, that would be awesome. This is the QR code to download our report. Please take a picture of it. Please download it on your phone. Please access this. You can also go to our website to get it. If we can click over and then to the first slide for the deck, that'd be awesome. Okay, so we started as an organization in 1969 when 5 military spouses sat around a kitchen table determined to do better by their widowed friends. In 2020, we were back at our kitchen tables. We all were, surrounded by our kids and our computers and Zoom. And we looked at our kids and we thought, okay, what do we need to know now, right? We know that being a teenager is hard, but what is the particular weight on a military teen? And we saw this as our kids PCS'd with us and moved with the military, never getting off that screen, having an entire school experience on a screen without new friends in person. This is my son, Hunter. He was at home for 2 years in the pandemic. So we wanted to understand, in this unique context where we know that kids are struggling, what is the specific experience of the kids at our kitchen tables? If we can go to the next slide, that'd be great. So we started with that question, right? What's hard? And then we move on to who answered. We've been doing this for 5 years. And what I want to say, you can look at all the, if you are a data person, you're going to want to know all these questions. This is why they're here. But the part that I think that I want to tell you is this is the most important thing is this is a self-selected sample. We are not talking to the kids and saying, hey, please come answer my survey. You'll get an iPad, right? These are us reaching out to parents that we work with through programs that we've reached out to on social, through email. And it's a self-selected sample. But what that means is that while it is not statistically representative, it is 800 military kids telling us about their experience as military kids. Their average age is 16. We actually open the survey through kids as old as 26 fill it out, but we're looking specifically at this teenage sample. If we can click to the next slide, that'd be great. Okay. We're going to talk about well-being. So one of the things that we have seen year over year is that the well-being of military teens is not comparable to that of their civilian peers. This is sort of the gut question we started with. Like, we know military life is harder, so what does it look like? And what we found is using the Warwick-Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Scale, which is a population-validated scale, that well-being is consistently lower for military kids every year. That's 5 years at the same data point. Here's what's good. This year, there was a little bit of a bright spot. I'm going to stand in front of the screen. Sorry for gesturing to all of you. So I want you to bear, let's look at a line. Let's pretend this whole thing, like the image of this person, this is going to be our well-being scale, right? If it's a population-based scale, 75% of our respondents are going to be in the middle. So that's what we're going to say is this is where our moderate well-being is. The other 25%, they're going to be split between the high and the low. What we see for our military teens is that year after year, less than 10% are here. A bulk of kids are in the middle, but a bulk of kids are on the lower side of this. That's where, as a mom, as an adult in the room, does that feel okay? Because it didn't to me, and it didn't feel okay to the researchers and the advocates at NMFA who've been working on this for years. If we could go to the next slide, that would be fabulous. So here's what I want to talk about. When we look at where military kids score on well-being, we want to understand what's happening that goes along with that lower well-being, right? Like, we know there are things that are hard being a teen. Being a teen is really hard, but what is making this year after year thing so much harder for military kids? These are associations. It's a cross-sectional study is not going to tell us these are the causal reasons for our kids' well-being issues, but there are consistent things that we see year after year that are associated with lower well-being. And when we see 5 years of associations, that says to us, okay, these are some structural things. Deployments have nothing to do with a kid, right? This isn't a characteristic of a child. These are characteristics of military life. How do we look at structural problems and then also find structural solutions? And that's where, when we're looking at 5 years of the same data, I have to start saying, what's new? Like, what can I look at that's different? And the part that I want to do is, he can't do a whole lot. He's 13, right? He can't do a whole lot to affect his well-being. But all of us in the room, and if you're joining on the live stream, that's you. You're an adult who cares about the military kids. How can we be part of the structural support that we see military kids need year after year? So as you can tell, I mean, these are like deployments, duty station changes in schools. Every time a military kid experiences this, they're moving and leaving their whole social world behind. Every single time they are uprooting away from their peer support network that they've built from the ground, and also from those trusted adults around them, the coach, the teacher, the band director. These are the people who had been there for them, and now they are leaving them once again. That's hard work for a kid to do, and it's a hard work for a kid to do year after year. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is a story of 2/3. These are not the same 2/3. 34% of our kids are telling us they're experiencing food insecurity. This is greater than the number of total families who are experiencing food insecurity in the military. This is greater than their civilian peers, teens. Another 34% plan to serve. This alone should be enough to get us to pay attention. I was told to stop gesticulating, but here we are, sorry. But this alone should get the attention of everybody in the room. Why are our kids experiencing hunger at a higher level? Why are they more food insecure than our total families? I mean, if you have a teenager, you know what that feels like. Your budget didn't change for food, but suddenly he's eating twice the breakfast that he used to eat. My budget didn't change, his belly did. But what that ends up in is a kid who's sitting here saying, can I please have 2 full breakfast dishes? And me saying, we are out at a restaurant while we're traveling. No, you can have 1 breakfast dish, you're fine. At the end of that, though, when we see families who report to us, 20% of military families consistently report food insecurity. When we see kids reporting those higher levels, what we know is that they're telling us, I'm still hungry. I don't have all the nutrients I need. I need more fuel than I'm getting from my body. And for those of you who come from a nutrition background, you only have these few years to give your body all the stuff it needs to get through the rest of your life. By the end of puberty, if you haven't kind of fed that total, your body is going to be feeling that for the rest of forever. But this alone should get us to pay attention. This should be the part that gets everybody else to pay attention, because this is more than 3 times as many of their civilian peers plan to serve. Military kids plan to serve at a 3 times higher rate. Every missed meal is going to come down into less muscle, less bone structure. All of that's going to have an effect on our readiness down the road, but I'd really rather we just focus on the fact that they need more now. But this becomes a readiness issue when we don't confront it all the way. These are not the same 2/3, but it is the same story consistently year after year. So while it is a coincidence, it's also the thing I want you to sit with. We keep coming back to the same coincidences. If we could go to the next slide, please. So a couple years ago, when we started looking at well-being, we started wondering, what does that mean in terms of the actions of our kids when they're upstairs in their bedrooms with the door closed and we don't know what's happening? We started looking at those behaviors and their experience with well-being, and self-harm was something that we wanted to understand better. Self-harm and suicidal ideation and suicidal behaviors. We consistently saw that military teens were self-harming at between 2 and 3 times the rate of their civilian peers. That should make everybody a little nervous. So when we're seeing no changes in well-being that we can point to and say, here's a trend, when we're seeing no changes in the structural challenges our kids are facing, no changes in the support that they're getting, right? Military life is going to remain hard. We need to understand why they're self-harming. This year we used a 13-point inventory to understand why they are self-harming, what those behaviors are. This is sort of a good news, bad news story. The great news is that these are not suicidal behaviors. That's wonderful for all of us in the room. Here's the hard part. What they are is affect behaviors. These are kids who have big feelings, and they are feeling it in the only way they know how. And they're doing it on their bodies. This is where we come in. When our kids are experiencing self-harm, and they're doing it as a way to cope with their feelings, it means that we have a challenge in front of us. We can help this number. We can bring this down because we can teach them new tools to make sure that they are not harming themselves, but coping in healthy ways. This anti-suicide number. This is something that I think is really important to sit with. This is our confidence that these kids are not trying to hurt themselves in any sort of permanent way. This really is proof that they're trying to do this as a way to manage the feeling, to get through it, so it doesn't become so hard that it swallows them. If we can go to the next slide, please. So in all of our military kids and all of our military connected kids, more than half of them told us that they are living with a wounded, ill, or injured service member in their home. We call those kids hidden helpers. You have one of them right here. They're hidden because we don't see the work they're doing. They show up at soccer, at school, at the grocery store. They look like regular kids, but they go home, and the workload that sits in front of them is very different than sits in front of their peers. And this is the part I really want to highlight. Caregiving is a journey, and it doesn't start with a diagnosis. The work of caregiving starts long before the diagnosis. And I'm not going to cry. Watch me not cry. But what I learned personally in this process, and I grew up in a military connected family, I know people who have served for a very long time. This is my community too. What took me by surprise was that while I was searching for the name for what was going on in our home, while I was searching for an answer, my kids were already doing the work. They'd already seen the problem, and they were finding the solutions. They were already doing this extra weight in our household so that things could stay normal and we could keep going and we could be okay. They absorbed it before even I knew. And that's so important to think about, because oftentimes these kids are doing work that their parents can't articulate to you that they're doing. They can't turn to their teacher and say, this is what we're going through at home, and sometimes he does so-and-so, because I haven't gotten to the point that I acknowledge that yet. This is particularly true when the injury is invisible and we are trying to make sense of what's happening. So when you're engaging with our kids in the world, please know, we aren't always there yet either, right? It's a journey for the whole family, and they're on their own path. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so in all of the studies about how we can do well by our kids, right? This is where we as the adults in the room have a specific job. What we know is there are two things that can make all the difference. One, peer connections. We do that at NMFA through Operation Purple. We do it through our youth programs, through our teen leader program, through our Bloom program, which is teens connecting with each other, building content and creating together without the adults getting in the way. Pure teen-led solutions. But the other thing they need is that trusted adult. And this is where we know that the trusted adult plays the most critical role as a protective factor for kids' well-being. Forget military kids. This is true for every teen that we talk to every day, right? It's a trusted adult. It's the coach. It's the teacher. The problem is our kids are moving away from those coaches, those teachers. So when they show up in community, we as the adults, anybody who's here, this is the challenge to us today, right? The data is our instruction. They need us. They need us to be ready to be the trusted protective factor in their life, to be an adult who shows up, to be an adult who knows how to be in relationship with kids who are moving all the time, who are dealing with these associations that we know are adding to their structural stress. That's our job. And that's really why we're so excited to be here in partnership with Sanford Harmony and with National University, because that's the part that I can't do without you. I need somebody who knows how to do relationships, how to be that. I try. This is what I know. And this is where we need everybody else who's listening. If you have a military teen in your life, if you have any teen in your life, because you might not know that they're a military teen, everybody needs to be ready to be that trusted adult. Can you go to the next slide, please? So if you go back to that QR code, this is where I'll leave you. If you're going to be that trusted adult, I also need you to know what the military teens say, this is what you're missing about me. This is what you don't know. And when we released our first military teen experience report 5 years ago, we turned to the teens that we work with and we said, guys, what do all the adults need to know? This year, we have refreshed that, and the teens have rewritten it. So you have their latest up-to-date version of post-pandemic. This is everything you need to know about me and my teen experience as a military kid. We want you to read it. We want you to be ready to be in relationship with them in the ways they need you to show up. So, thank you so much.
I'm back. Hunter, you want to scooch on in? This is the fun part because we actually get to hear from a hidden helper and military teen. Come on closer in. So Hunter, I know you pretty well. I think we've done a lot of cool things together. In fact, we took my teen plus Hunter. We went and saw Kendrick Lamar. He knows all the words. So if he gets tongue-tied, we're just going to pause and have him rap a little bit. Is that cool? Hunter, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am 13. My dad is a Marine, and I like music, I like science, and I like strategic card games, which most of y'all don't know about, but it's very fun if you get into it. And I play the bass, which got me into jazz. That picture right there is actually me at Tri-C Jazz Fest. And
yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. You're only 13. That was a really big introduction. And a lot of our resumes aren't that extensive. I noticed the first thing that you said, though, was that your dad is a Marine. So
yes.
That was top of the list, very important. Tell me how him being in the Marine Corps and you being a part of this military family has shaped your life.
Let's see. Well, he was gone for a couple years, and he almost missed my birth because he was going home. He was coming back from the Afghanistan war. And he has an invisible injury from that, which has shaped my family for a while.
Tell us more about that.
Well, my dad has an invisible injury that he got from the Afghanistan war, and it's no one can see it because it is in his brain rather than being on his body. And most people would think he is just a normal person who is completely fine, which would make sense if he didn't have an invisible injury. And that point is the point at which most things start to go wrong, because invisible injuries cause things that normal people just don't have.
Your mom, when she was going through that research, was talking about what it's like to be a military teen and some of that additional weight that you have to carry. So what are some of the things that you have to carry, things that you have to do and think about that your friends who aren't military kids don't?
I'm going to be completely honest here. I have no clue because I don't know life without being a military kid.
You don't know. That's such a good point. Okay, and you also, though, you talk about this weight that you're carrying. Maybe talk to me about the weight, and then those who are not in a military family might be able to just extrapolate and say, yeah, that's not what we do here.
Let's see. Let's come back to that question. I need to think.
Are you ready to wrap now? No, we're not
okay.
doing that. Okay. One thing that was in the data as well was the trusted adults and the trusted peers, and what an important role those people play in your life.
Yes.
I know that you have several of both. And
Yes.
Can you talk to me about some of those important people and what it is that they do for you and how they make life better?
Yes. Okay. So a lot of my trusted adults are people that I've met from things that I do. For example, in the strategic card game thing, very fun, but I have a couple trusted adults there. We have Seth, he's amazing. He greets me every Saturday when I come through the door with just a big smile, and it's so amazing to see. And then I have Grant, who is always happy to see me, and I love that. But then we also have some music teachers. I have Miss Hamilton, who was my music teacher for 5th and 6th grade, where I learned the bass. And then I also have my music teacher for 7th grade and kindergarten through 4th, Miss Chris and Miss Castleberry, who I am very sad about how I left both of them. Let me rephrase that. I didn't leave both of them behind, as in I'm in a higher grade than I can have them.
You grew up.
Mm-hmm.
You grew up and you had to move on. I understand that. One thing that I think is interesting is when you talk about the kids, you talk about how happy they are to see you and what that does for you. And then you talk about the adults and you talk about them teaching you things. Would you say those are the most important parts of those relationships, or is there more?
I would say I get a connection from them because of that, which very much helps me.
For everyone who is listening and saw that data that your mom shared, were there parts of that, or which parts, I should say, that really resonated with you that you saw yourself in?
Wait, which parts?
The part your mom was... Were you not paying attention when your mom was talking?
No.
You're getting called out live stream. Okay, skip that. Data aside. What would you like Americans, people who aren't necessarily in the military community, coaches, teachers, people like the ones that you described that have made such a difference to you, what would you like them to know about your life as a military kid and how they can better support you?
It's mostly that different weight is carried, because most kids don't have to carry the weight of an entire family, while military kids, as we saw in the data, I think, as we saw in the data.
We saw it.
Great. That they have to carry more weight, and the normal children, I shouldn't say normal, the children that don't have a military parent or military family member usually don't have to carry as much weight.
Yeah, and you said, I don't want to say normal, and you're right, it's not abnormal. However, only 1% of Americans serve, and so it isn't all Americans. This is a very special, both privilege and weight that you're describing. Can you also, just so that we're also ending on the good stuff, tell us what you think has positively affected you through military life?
Ooh, let's see. Through military life.
Time up, no.
That's a hard one. I haven't really thought about that.
Okay. All right, since you didn't listen to your mom, tell us, this is my last question, I promise.
Okay.
The most important thing that people need to know about military kids and teens.
Well, I've already stated that people really do need to know that we carry more weight, both mentally and physically, for our family, for our peers, for everyone to see us. And most people don't carry that weight.
Mic drop, that's right. Hunter, you're incredible. I see you. I know that everyone in here sees you. Thank you for all that you do for our country by being a military kid and by being a hidden helper. And you really are inspiring, and I know we put you on the spot here. So thank you for allowing us to have this conversation with you.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hunter and Bessa. Come on up. We have a few folks who are going to join us here, and we're very, very thankful for this great panel that we have for you today. Hunter, as a military mom, or as a mom of a military kid, I think that was just incredible. And, I think it's important that people know, we talk about military kids, and when you said normal, I think like superpowers, right? And there's all this resilience that our military kids tell us that they've developed as they get to be adults, right? And we see these kids can come into a classroom and they can introduce themselves, and often they have these skills that they've developed, but those skills have been developed through some adversity. And I think it's really important that what we talk about today is that our military kids don't have any control over the moves and the deployments. There's so much that they can't control. But what we as adults can control, and that not only includes their parents in the community, but counselors and coaches and librarians and music teachers and all of the people that connect with those folks, what they can control is how to help them manage and understand those connections and really communicate with them about what those challenges are, and that they're here to listen and they're here to help with those really big feelings. They're here to help with the weight of those. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I would like to say, joining us today is Gail Mills, I'm so sorry, who is she's our division director of the Harmony Academy at National University. Dan Dunham, who is the military student and family specialist with the Virginia Department of Education and Virginia's Compact Commissioner Designee. Gina Kubiak, who is the district advisor for community engagement and whole child and community design at the San Diego County Office of Education. And we have, again with us, who needs no introduction, Raleigh, who has given us all the data. I was listening, Raleigh, I promise I was. So, no, I'm just kidding, Hunter. You just can't miss a little bit of a diss. Okay, so what we're going to talk about a little bit is what the findings tell us, and I'm going to ask our panelists to answer this question, and as you answer the question, panelists, if you wouldn't mind giving yourself a brief introduction for the group. So let me start with you, Raleigh. This is now the 5th year of the Military Teen Experience Survey, and you said the needle barely moves. We've just heard your son Hunter's story. So what is 5 years of listening to military teens taught us about how they're feeling, and what should school leaders and educations do differently?
So this is where, I would love the needle to move. I would love to be able to tell you that we have more than a bright spot. This year, again, when I do that, the pointing thing, and I'm like, there should be 12.5% of these kids should be over here in high, and we have less than 10% consistently. This year, we had a bright spot in that slightly more kids are in the moderate category. But when we talk about well-being, these are big scientific terms. I really was just a mom and an advocate and a programmer who's trying to help kids and worked with people far smarter than I am to learn this. But those low well-being, the markers of low well-being also align with a lot of depressive symptoms. These are kids who don't feel clear-headed. They don't feel like they can make decisions. They don't feel confident. They don't feel connected. These are not things that we want our kids feeling. And what I would beg of all of the teachers and counselors and superintendents to know is that our kids are showing up and more of them are experiencing that. And Hunter actually said something that I've never thought about before. When he was asked about what's different, how would he know? My kid is going to show up in a counselor's office and a counselor is going to say, well, what's different? And he's going to be like, I don't know. What does that look like? All he knows is that his dad is gone and his friends' dads aren't, and that the cycle of our lives looks different than people see from the outside. They see this nice kid who plays music, who does well in school, who gets along with his peers, who only occasionally tunes out and doesn't listen to his mother while she's talking. Hunter knows all this stuff. He's heard me working on this for a very long time. But this is I want everybody to know that you've got a kid who can't articulate to you what's different. This is their regular life, but their regular life is hard, and that's where we as the adults have to be able to name that for them. That's what I would want everybody to know.
Thank you, Raleigh. I appreciate that. And Gail, you've been with the Harmony program for quite a while now, and I'd like to know what really stood out to you, and what does that mean from a standpoint of how we interact and integrate with communities?
Yes, well, thank you, Hunter and Raleigh. That was amazing and impressive. The data from the study for education leaders, myself and others, really points out that transition is hard. Belonging matters. and kids still feel disconnected despite being highly resilient. So when we think about that, we have to really implement systems that are very intentional of building those healthy relationships and making those connections. One data point that was really important that I discovered was 80% of military teens and youth, they attend public schools. So obviously some have private schools, some have homeschool. But really keeping that in mind is so critical for leaders. I mean, I'm based here in San Diego. We have a high military population. You know, we're highly aware of military youth. However, if we think about across the nation and some of those other areas, there's a lot of districts that have military youth. So really recognizing that first and foremost is so important to then move to some of the actions that Raleigh pointed out and what was pointed out in the data. You know, really understanding that we should have those systems in place and have those systems in place as a preventive measure rather than waiting till there's an truancy problem, until there's behavioral issues, or even worse, until there's mental health issues and crisis. So really just making that awareness. We really do need to move from, we know what the challenge is. You know, that isn't new. It's really a matter of moving into, from an admiration of Hunter to really seeing him and having those systems in place, and not just assuming because he appears to be fine and resilient, that he doesn't need those connections. And you know, when you move, you need those new people. You know, he still knows his K through 4th grade music teacher, and we can all think of those people that were important in our lives, those trusting adults. Well, if they move again, who are those? And do we have that set up as school leaders? Do we have those systems in place? And do we have those intentional activities and connections created for students when they enter our buildings?
Thank you so much, Gail. And it's like you just set up all those questions for Gina. Because Gina, if I had the honor of attending the Purple Star Schools Awards this year with Nancy Rowland, and it was pretty amazing. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we have the largest number of Purple Star schools in California. Is that right? So can you tell us a little bit from the school standpoint, and maybe just talk a little bit about what you do as well with our San Diego schools, with our San Diego County schools?
Sure. So I have the privilege of, I'm a district advisor for community engagement, but what the real focus is I am part of a team that is working statewide on a community engagement initiative. And at the root of all of that is really, how are we making decisions in our schools, identifying problems and making decisions with elevating student and family voice and community voice at the start of it. So we are looking at districts, we're bringing together people and teams and saying, we have to address something, but we need to do it not with families as an afterthought, not with students' voice as a checkbox because we have to ask them a question. Let's have them in the discussions driving the decisions that we make. And so I think when I think about all of that and we think about our military-connected students, I think on the most recent data we have, we don't have this year's, the CalPED survey where it says with active duty military, there was over 26,000 children in San Diego County that were that. And so we're talking about a large population in our classrooms and our schools. And so when we think about community engagement, when we think about elevating student and family voice, hearing from them of what they need is so important. And I think that when we're looking at, we have our Purple Star schools, we have these different things, and we need to be intentional. And I know it's been mentioned a couple times now, but one thing that really resonated is I recently had the privilege of doing a training for those that are supporting military-connected students on the USS Midway, and it was beautiful, and we talked about, tell me how you would describe the military-connected students in your class or at your school. Tell me their strengths. And people were saying, they are resilient, they're adaptable, they have a global perspective that a lot of students don't have. They are able to talk with adults in a way that's beyond their years. They were talking about all these things, and those are all beautiful, and we know a strength-based approach is the way we should be looking at our students. But I think sometimes we look at these beautiful things and their talents and their brilliance, and we forget or we diminish the struggles that came in order to build that strength. And so I think about the stronger they are and the more resilient they are, what that really is telling us, it means it's been a longer season of struggle that has brought them to that point. And so that intentionality of really elevating and hearing from them is so powerful. And so that survey and having it come from them, we just need to listen. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think, Dan, from your perspective, especially as the compact designee, I think there's a lot to think about from Virginia. And actually, my child went to school and graduated high school in Virginia as a military child. So I know that there are a lot of programs, and you're looking at impact and engagement. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe just a little bit about what you do in Virginia as well?
Sure. So, I mean, first of all, you're modeling exactly what we think should be happening across the country in every state. So we're modeling the grabbing a student voice and using it to guide practice. We're fostering connection with family and making sure that they're a part of that process. And so research has indicated that needs to have happened years ago. So it goes beyond the survey. The first survey I think I've ever read was in 2009, and it was done at a Operation Purple camp with students whose parents were deployed to combat zones. And even back then, the students were saying, we need connection. And so it's those of us who have been working in this space for quite some time have known that needs to be facilitated. It can't just be like, well, I know that the students get along with one another in school. No, it has to be facilitated. You have to get adults involved. And as we're learning today on the webinar, hopefully, if you've heard it if you're hearing it for the first time, it takes a lot of people. It sometimes involves folks in the community, sometimes involves universities. It definitely involves school leadership, state legislators to be involved and be behind things as is being modeled in San Diego through their family engagement. And so I don't know if that helps to answer your question, but certainly I think that without the facilitation aspect of it and it being required at a leadership level in schools and then being monitored and then being looked at for improvement, systemic improvement, it's not really going to improve the outcomes that we're looking to improve. And so in Virginia, we have the Purple Star program. We adopted the second year after Ohio, which, by the way, for those who may not know anything about Purple Star schools, it started with two parents who approached the Dayton County superintendent, and they were military spouses that were assigned to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And they went to the superintendent in Dayton. They said, how do you really know you're supporting our military-connected students? And that superintendent had this, approach that said, you know what, I really don't know how we are supporting our military-connected students. Let's measure that. Let's determine how that's done, and let's acknowledge the hard work of those schools who are doing a good job of supporting our military-connected kids by providing them a Purple Star Award. And then Pete Lupibia, who's just like me in Ohio, he said, if it's good enough for Dayton, it's good enough for the state of Ohio. And then I said, well, if it's good enough for Ohio, Virginia will make it better. And we put, as part of our Purple Star Schools matrix, we brought together military spouses, school counselors, folks at the state level, school psychologists, and the like, and we said, what can we do in our matrix to make our Purple Star schools a great environment for military-connected kids? And one of the best things that we decided to do was to ensure that you will not get a Purple Star in Virginia if you don't have peer-to-peer support. If you don't leverage the work of the students or into this process of fostering connection, it's not going to happen. And since then, it has exploded. Every year, we have more and more schools coming on, becoming Purple Star schools. I think we're now up to 509 Purple Star schools, and it just keeps growing. We're very proud of that, and I'll get into more details about how what else we're doing on the state level in terms of supporting the students at that level. But it's just a beautiful thing to see have grown, and it all started with us kind of looking at research and realizing that students are asking for connection.
Yeah, and I think that brings around the entire reason we're here today, which is measuring, understanding, and then measuring, because we can't say we're doing good things unless we can actually show the impact. And I think what we've done today is not only show the data, but also the voices and the stories, and I think that's really important. So we are getting close to our time, I think, and so what I'd like to do is I would like to ask each of you sort of one practical takeaway. You know, imagine every educator, youth, community leader. What is it that you would like them to know? And I do want to go back to one of the things that really, it was the greatest answer is, I don't know, from Hunter, which was, I don't know what I don't know. And so I know that some of the data shows that even as early as 6 months old, some of our military children are showing some real differences based on what's happening to them in their household. So if you had one practical tip for leaders, educators, can you tell us what that is? And I'm just going to start here with Dan again, and we'll go back down all the way, and we'll let Raleigh have the last word.
Well, I think you need to know who they are. I think you need to know who your military-connected students are. And if you don't know, you need to work really fast and get spun up on knowing them. And know this, military-connected kids live all over the place. They live in your urban environments, they live in your rural environments, they live in your suburban environments. They live on military installations, and they don't. We have, during the last decade and more, we have activated our Guard and Reserve families a lot more in these conflicts that happen all over the country than in any other time in our nation's history. So you may live in a community where you're not next to a military installation. That does not mean that you cannot be out there supporting military-connected students. I have communities in rural Virginia where the kiddos say, we never see anyone new moving into our community. We live in the mountains, it barely happens. Can we be a Purple Star school? And you know what I say to them? Absolutely, you can. You can be a Red or Reserve Purple Star school. You can be prepared to support the students who, who might be coming in. But guess what? It doesn't have to be students moving into the community that need support of their peers. Peer connection and leading and having students have a trusted adult is central to the prevention of harm, both to a student themselves or to the general population. It is a preventative measure for school safety. And if you can go to any school safety conference in the country, and they're going to talk about connection, and they're going to talk about the need for trusted adults to be available to students, because those will help prevent some bad things from happening. So
thank you for that. Gina?
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of cheat and do two things, because one is a little more overarching and one is, I think, a strategy we can walk away with. One thing is the data is looking at teens 13 and up, and if we wait until they're 13 to start addressing this, we are too late. The data that is telling us that they're struggling, that they have these ideations, that they aren't feeling connected, it is telling us that there is a root cause that started a whole lot sooner. And so if you are working with middle school and high school students, we need to track it back to elementary. If you're in elementary, we need to get into our preschools and look at our early childhood. We need to start bridging from the early grades and the early years of these children's lives and start wrapping around them, putting trusted adults, putting systems in place so that by the time they take a survey at 13, that's when the needle can move, because otherwise we are going to keep seeing this cycle and we're going to keep perpetuating it because we're going to keep trying to put Band-Aids on things that should have had something addressed a whole lot earlier. So my plug for early education and P3, looking at preschool through third grade continuums and getting to the root cause, I think is something we need to do as a nation, as districts, as states, because that's where we can connect. We know families are most engaged the earlier, so if we can get at those families and wrap around them early, we also know that's going to help. So there's a lot we can do if we start there. But if we look at just our systems in schools, I think just a strategy or something we can be doing is this idea of there's no wrong day to start. We know these children are moving from school to school. They're doing different things. It doesn't always fall with when the school year starts. And so how do we ensure that a child shows up and everyone is prepared? Their name is already on their desk. They already have a locker. They have everything ready. All the things that people just know because they were part of the system, that child knows the unwritten rules of the school beyond just the handbook. Is there a student that's ready to be a peer connection? Is there an adult that's ready to ensure they have everything they need? That if they miss the tryouts because they weren't there in time, how are we ensuring they have access to the sports, to the music, to whatever it might be, whatever expression they need? And so I really think we need to be very specific in creating systems where there is no wrong day to start, because that is the right day for them to be there, and we are ready to surround them and their families.
Great, thanks very much. Gail?
Ditto. No. No, I'm going to bring it to the granular level, and that's, you know, it sounds so simple, but if every educator learned every student's name, learned what's most important to them, or some things that are important to them, and really made that connection so that that student knows they are noticed, they know that, like, this adult sees me, that basic makes a huge difference. The extraordinary resilience that military youth demonstrate can be to our advantage. They've been through some of these things, but we can't assume that they can do that on their own. So really setting them up for success, which Gina just described. Resilience grows through connections. It's not in isolation. So really making sure that as an educator, you set that up. Every teen, every youth deserves to be seen and valued. Those lead to, and at Harmony, those lead to academic success. Those lead to kids experiencing joy. Those lead to them wanting to go to school because they have these three caring adults. They have this music teacher that's awesome. They have their after-school program that those leaders know who they are and appreciate them and value them. So there's multiple adults throughout their day that really gets them in that community and enjoying what they are doing. A student's first impression in a new school should not be, I hope I fit in, and I hope that they like me. It should be, we're glad you're here, and really making that assertive effort, intentional system and process in place before that transition happens.
I love all of that. And it's like all of that, and then can we make it even earlier? And this is where, like, the reason that we want so much to be able to partner with you as we look at solutions for our teens is that every person that my 13-year-old named was in his life when he was in elementary school. These were people who showed up and who wrapped around him and our whole family in our very hard times that we didn't even have names for. We didn't know what we were doing. But other adults looked at Hunter, adults from his schools, adults from his extracurricular life. His pastor showed up at our church, our pastor, dressed as a flamingo for his little sister's birthday one day. These are these small things that said to those kids, I see you, right? Like, I know it's hard. I know I don't know the details, but I will show up anyway. And that's the thing that if every educator, if every adult, if every coach could listen, I need you to look not just at the kid in front of you, but at their little siblings. The difference that we can make in a 13-year-old is showing up when he's in second grade and third grade and fourth grade. That's when we're able to help equip them with the skills they need so that resilience, which isn't automatic, can be learned the easy way and not the hard way for once. I mean, if we could make that easier, that'd be great. But then to make sure that as we do that, we're able to identify that any kid could be a military kid. Shaker Heights, Ohio is not going to realize that Hunter is a military kid, but in the wild of Shaker Heights, which is just regular suburban Cleveland, he found another military kid to be best friends with. Those connections exist. They're building them as peers, but that's where we need to wrap around them as adults as early as humanly possible with as much cultural competency as we can, both in military life, download the field guide for a military teen, and with the relationship skills that you guys do such a phenomenal job of teaching and supporting so that we are able to serve them when they need it most so that by the time they hit 13, we can move that needle.
Thank you, Raleigh. And can you remind us again where we can find the data?
Militaryfamily.org. Please feel free to use the QR code. Our latest teen results, in fact, all of them. So like belabor yourself, read all of the years of it so you can see these problems really are systematic. This is what our kids are dealing with every year, and the only solution we can offer is to be those people lifting them up, and our field guide for the military teen is there too.
Thank you. Gail, how can we get in touch with Harmony if we'd like to partner?
Well, just call me.
I think we can go.
Yeah, there's a QR code you can scan.
Awesome.
But for sure, you can go on Harmony Academy, Sanford Harmony. .org and find all out about us, and we're happy to connect and reach out and make sure that we're supporting your after-school programs, your in-classroom programs. We work with a lot of youth organizations. We work with preschools, the early childhood divisions. We work with family divisions at school districts. We work with counseling divisions in school districts. So, you know, we really believe, I think you saw the diagram up here earlier, is that we really believe in a whole child approach. So we have resources for families. We have resources for those out-of-school time providers. We have resources for in-classroom. So we really want to surround the child and make sure they're getting those connections and those relationship skills and having community in all sectors of their life.
Thank you. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to the Virginia Department of Education. Thank you to the San Diego County Office of Education, Harmony, the Harmony Clubhouse, Sanford Harmony Clubhouse, National Military Family Association, Hunter, Bessa, Nancy, Representative Sarah Jacobs. Thank you all for joining us today. And please reach out to all of our partners to find resources to help those children in your communities. Thanks very much.
Thank you.